It happened in a fraction of a second. A single glance. A moment so fleeting that most people wouldn't have noticed it. But for Samuel and Lillian, that blink of an eye changed their lives forever. Samuel was running late for his train. It had been one of those mornings, his alarm failed him, his coffee spilled on his shirt, and he barely had time to grab his laptop before dashing out the door. As he sprinted down the platform, he almost collided with someone, a woman with striking green eyes and auburn hair. For the briefest moment, their eyes met. Lillian felt it too, an odd sensation, like time slowing down, like the world around them faded into silence. She blinked, and the moment was gone. Samuel muttered an apology and rushed past her onto the train just as the doors closed. She stood there, heart racing, wondering what had just happened. Samuel couldn't shake the feeling. The entire ride to work, he kept replaying that instant over and over again. Who was she? Why did he feel like he had known her forever? Lillian felt the same. That evening, she found herself returning to the station at the same time, hoping, irrationally, that she might see him again. But he wasn't there. For a week, they went about their lives, haunted by that 1 second of connection. Lillian tried to brush it off as mere coincidence, a trick of the mind, but deep down, she knew it was something more. Samuel, too, found himself scanning every crowd, every platform, every coffee shop, wondering if he would see those green eyes again. Then, as if fate had been toying with them, they met again, this time at a bookstore. Samuel was flipping through a novel when he heard a familiar voice say, "That one's a classic." He looked up and there she was, Lillian. "You." He blurted out, surprising himself. Lillian chuckled. "Didn't expect to see you here." They introduced themselves, and what started as a casual conversation turned into an hour of laughter, book recommendations, and a coffee date that neither of them had planned but both desperately wanted. They found that their lives were oddly connected. They had attended the same university but had never met. They had mutual friends, had been to the same cafes, even watched the same play at the same theater on the same night. It was as if life had been trying to bring them together for years, but they had only now noticed. Their coffee date turned into a walk through the city, where they talked about their dreams, their favorite books, their childhoods. By the time they parted that night, both knew their lives would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and soon, Samuel and Lillian were inseparable. They explored hidden corners of the city, watched old movies in tiny theaters, and stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. They had their inside jokes, their favorite songs, their little traditions, like always ordering 2 different desserts so they could share. One evening, as they walked by the river, Samuel turned to Lillian and asked, "Do you believe in love at first sight?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I used to think it was just a romantic myth. And now, I think, love can happen in a blink." Samuel smiled. "I think so too. But love stories aren't without their trials." Just as everything seemed perfect, Lillian got an opportunity to study in Paris for a year. It was a dream she had chased for years, and now, standing at the crossroads of love and ambition, she had to make an impossible choice. "I don't want to leave you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Samuel took her hands in his. "Lillian, this is your dream. You have to go. But what if we found each other once? If this is real, we'll find each other again." With heavy hearts, they parted ways, promising to stay in touch, but distance has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. For months, they wrote letters, sent voice messages, and video called whenever they could. But as time passed, the calls became less frequent, the letters shorter. Samuel immersed himself in work, while Lillian was swept away by the magic of Paris. Then, one day, the letters stopped completely. Samuel told himself it was inevitable, but his heart never let go. He still remembered that first moment, the blink of an eye that changed everything. Years passed. Samuel, now a successful writer, had almost convinced himself that Lillian was just a beautiful memory. That is, until he found a letter tucked inside one of his old books. It was from Lillian, dated 3 years ago. "Samuel, if you ever read this, meet me at the bookstore where it all began, on the first day of spring. I'll be there." His heart pounded. Had he missed his chance? It was the first day of spring. He ran. Samuel pushed open the door to the bookstore, breathless, heart racing. And there, standing by the same shelf where they first met, was Lillian. Their eyes met. It was just a second. A single blink. But in that blink, they both knew, their love had never faded. Lillian smiled. "Took you long enough." Samuel laughed. "I had to make sure this wasn't just a dream." And as he pulled her into his arms, he whispered, "Love may happen in a blink, but real love lasts forever." And just like that, their story began again.